Hello and welcome to Bergkamp Wonderland, an Arsenal podcast. With me tonight is two wonderful gentlemen from the Bruised Banana podcast in the latest episode of the series, ABW Meats. And it's not actually a series on bacon and pork and lamb chops, as someone messaged me and asked me, what do I recommend as meat? I recommend as meat, all meat, apart from dolphins, because they're nonsense. I'm not sure you're allowed to eat dolphins. See, wobbling on about nothing already. With me is Tom, who is the host of the Bruised Banana podcast, and we share a love of Portuguese neighbours. He has one, I have two, but I've only spoken to one of mine fleetingly because she's
when
a
you
bit
say
weird.
Two, do you mean you've got them on both sides?
One across the road.
Yeah.
Who's actually, I support a Portuguese team called Penafiel, and I told her, and she said, that's where I'm from. I think she was lying. There's no way anyone's from Penafiel. It's a shit team. They're the Barnet of the Portuguese leagues.
I think it sounds like she wanted to get a piece of Danny by the sounds of things.
Well, she was asking about the bungalow next door because she's all wobbly with arthritis. I feel her pain. And she said, is anyone moving in there? I said, yeah, someone's moving in. And then she just said something in Portuguese and wandered off. And she drives a Ford Galaxy and she can't drive. She's hit most of the cars in the car park. She won't be listening. In the car park out there, she's hit most of the other cars there, and they get quite angry with her.
That's a big old vehicle. It's a big old vehicle to be manoeuvring if you're not very good.
No. You don't muck around in a Galaxy. It's called a Galaxy for a reason, in relevance to the size of it. Are you all right, Tom? How have you been?
I'm okay. Yeah, I actually had to go into the office today for work, which was annoying because I had to go into central London. But I'm home now. I'm in what you dubbed as a prison cell that I reside in.
You haven't been out at all, have you? You haven't been out for 25 years.
No, I'm just in here. The guards do let me wear this David Seaman replica football shirt, which has elbow pads, which is very useful for some of the things that the guards get me to do.
Is that a clue for how long you've been in there? Because that was the current kit when you got sent down.
This was the one this was one of the few things I was allowed to bring in with me.
Oh dear. So you've cheered up from the last pod because you were quite sweary on your last show, which was the 9th of August, I think.
You've already chastised me for that. And that podcast was before the game. That was the preview podcast.
That was the preview podcast, yeah.
Yeah, that was the exciting kind of, all right, new season, like we said in the podcast, obviously every season you go into, it's a fresh slate, it's a new opportunity. It's like when you come out of prison, you can rebuild your life with these 11 idiots that play for you. But I think we're all sort of broadly on the same page as Arsenal fans, aren't we? Which is kind of
a tear-stained page,
a very sad page, a page that you rip of a book that you rip out to wipe your ass with in prison,
with blood-stained Y just scraped into each page. Why, Arteta? What are you doing?
Yeah.
Oh, also with us tonight is Dan, who has to send the little one to sleep. Well, hopefully trying to send the little one to sleep. Is your child called Messi? Have you named your child Messi as well?
No, I have not.
Oh, good. It's a silly name to name a child.
Yeah.
How have you been?
Yeah, not too bad. Not too bad at all, really. I work from home, and so I just spend basically 12 hours a day in this room, which I'm perfectly happy with.
Dan works from home, and he's a hermit, which lockdown.
Yeah,
Lockdown's
I work from home. I don't like people. It's been great.
I don't like people. Really, I'd go as far as I say I hate people. They irritate me. You have to put up with their bullshit, and I ain't putting up with no bullshit. I'm 50 now. I don't have to. I've had 49 years of putting up with people's bullshit. Oh, there's a cat.
You've decided that's enough.
There's a cat.
There's the cat.
Right. So Chris was going to come on the show. Chris Carpenter, Dirty Pirate, and then he said he can't make it because he's doing an ABW in conversation with Elliot, and Elliot's had to move it. And then I said to Chris, do you want to come on? And he went, oh, no, I can't now. And he sent me a message, and it involves some of you lot. So can I have your permission to play this, Chris? Yes, you can. Legally, I'm allowed.
Thank you, mate. Normally I would have hopped on, but I only got home from work about 10 minutes ago, and my dinner, which is potato balls and fish in butter sauce, is currently cooking and would be ready right in the middle of the pod. So I'm going to politely say no, but please do give my regards to the guys and just tell them that I enjoy the podcast. And if they've got any sort of taste, they'll invite me on one day. And if they don't, fuck them. Have a good one, mate. But yeah, please do give them my regards because they're all top guys. So I shall speak to you soon, and let me know when it's out. I shall tweet it and listen to it. Bye. Quim.
He ended up with Quim. What a shit.
That's lovely. Well, Portuguese goalkeeper
I was
Mention-
thinking that.
at the end.
And what's
Maybe
the potato ball?
Yeah, that was...
This is Chris's idea of dinner. He goes into Aldi and goes to the bargain off bin, eat now or die nonsense, picks out the worst combination of 3 foods that can cost a grand total of less than £1, takes them home and cooks them because he's a fucking animal.
I feel
think
like we
that's-
should have him on the podcast just to ask him about dinner.
Oh,
Yeah, we
some
could-
of the
we-
shit he eats.
We could just do like a sort of an Arsenal off-menu spin-off podcast where he comes on and tries in vain for 45 minutes to explain to us what potato balls are.
I think he might mean that there's croquettes and then you get smaller, rounder ones of croquettes. You get them in a bag, maybe kind of hash brownie kind of thing.
I think I know what you're getting at there.
There is a podcast called where they talk about your favourite flavoured crisps. I'm a crisp connoisseur, and I wouldn't even listen to that shit.
Do they have
no,
interesting
that's-
people on, or just?
I think it's a
normal
comedian that I
idiots?
like. It's the one who was diabetic from Taskmaster, who did a stand-up show based around being diabetic. I think he does it.
What is it? Ed Gamble?
That's him. So
Because he does off-menu.
Yeah, he does the other food podcast, doesn't he?
or maybe that's
So
what
he's
I'm getting
obviously-
it confused with.
Maybe they mentioned crisps on there once, and
I don't listen.
Pete
I don't
George-
listen, so I don't know. I've just assumed and got it completely and utterly wrong.
What other podcasts that we don't listen to should we talk about?
Should we make
Maybe,
up?
maybe our own podcast, because I struggle to listen to that sometimes.
Don't be mean to yourself. Talking
Well,
about
I
your
have
own
to listen
podcast,
to it. I have to listen to it to edit it. So then I'm like, when it goes out into the wild, I'm like, I've had enough of it.
Editing. Don't. I used to remember the days I used to edit.
I think I'm
Not anymore.
getting to that point now. But it's just, Alex and Dan make so many mistakes. It's unbelievable. I'm just having to force feed them lines constantly.
Was there ever a 4th member of your podcast, or did I dream that?
Early on there was that we started it with 4 of us, and then I think
Is that why he's in prison?
yeah, Tom Murder did.
Possibly.
I think we did 9 or 10 with a foursome, and then we sort of took a break. And when we came back, it was the lineup you see today. So
The current and favoured lineup.
There's plenty of dead bodies underneath the ABW patio, so don't worry about just having one missing. I think there must be about a dozen that have been here, fallen out and gone. And
Well, you were just saying you're on a WhatsApp group of 12 people.
12. And I say it was
Oh,
available for a show, and I maybe get 1 or 2, and the rest of the time they're just taking a piss out of each other and being horrible and putting stuff in there that nobody really wants to see, or talking about Jock's Hamwiches because he's another food connoisseur. Anyway, start with you, Tom. How did you become an Arsenal fan? Just give us a little bit of a story.
Okay, well, I'm from Surrey originally. I'm a home counties boy, and growing up, my dad had next to no interest in football whatsoever. So I think, like a lot of people whose dads don't really care about football very much, if you are introduced to football at a young age, it'd be more likely to be through friends, unless you've got like a weird uncle that takes you along or something, which I didn't have. So I had a really good friend at primary school who was the reason why I chose to wear this JVC goalkeeper shirt tonight is in honor of our shared love of goalkeepers that we both had when we were about 8 or 9 years old. And he, at the age of 8, supported 2 teams, Crystal Palace and Arsenal. And I think that was entirely because of David Seaman and Nigel Martin, who were his 2 favourite players.
Did he like a mustache?
Well, okay, so there's like an extra element to this story that I was debating whether or not to tell. But I think because you just said that, I might have to. So, he was really into goalkeepers, and he supported, like I say, Palace and Arsenal. And I very quickly realised that was stupid, and you couldn't have 2 teams in England. So I chose the one that had a gun on its badge rather than a stupid eagle.
Good choice.
And and that was basically how I was introduced to Arsenal. And used to go around his house after school and have a bit of a kickabout in the park. And he'd teach me how to be a goalkeeper, and then go back to his and have your classic kids chippy tea, sausages, beans, that kind of thing.
Fish fingers.
And the thing that I was debating whether to mention or not was just the fact that on one occasion, I remember this quite vividly. Actually, can't believe I'm telling this. I went to his house. We did all the standard stuff, and then we went upstairs to play Mario Kart on the NES. And we were lying on his single bed, and the TV screen that the Mario Kart was on was sort of at the end of the bed, so we were lying on our fronts. And partway through the race, he just climbed on top of me and lay on top of me for a bit.
Oh,
yeah.
So how quickly did it take you to leave, or did you stay?
Well, it was one of those situations. I mean, I don't know. It was one of those situations where you're 8, where it just sort of happened, and then he just got off, and that was the end of it. I think he was just, he's just an 8-year-old kid, just doing stuff.
Oh,
I can't believe you told that story.
I had a similar thing. I was about 10. Same thing happened to me, and he took my watch, and then I left. I had a Casio watch, and he took it. I never saw it again. It played Edelweiss.
He just took it off your wrist.
Yeah, I was round his house, and he playing games, and he had a moment. He went a little bit schizo and attacked me, and then he sat on me, wouldn't get off, and then he took my watch off me, and then I went home, and that was the last time I ever saw him.
This
and I
sounds
know
a little
exactly
bit
where he
more.
lives.
This sounds a bit more aggressive than.
Yeah, I think it was.
I think mine was maybe a little bit more of a romantic,
A little bit more
It was
loving.
a bit more friendly.
a nascent romantic moment.
Oh, and have you seen him lately?
No,
You don't know
No,
what
I
happened
moved.
to him.
We moved away.
You moved the next day.
We moved away.
Mum, we're
to Sussex.
moving.
We moved to Sussex, and then didn't see him. But from him, my love of Arsenal was born, and obviously you don't change your team. So
You do. My friend's son Harley did. He said he doesn't support Arsenal anymore. He supports Chelsea. It's all I could do not to throttle the little shit.
that
Yeah, fuck him then.
my boy has tried that on a couple of occasions. At one point he said he supported Arsenal and Liverpool because his mate supports Liverpool, and I was just like, no, you don't. Sorry.
So you forced your child to support Arsenal.
I didn't force him. I was just like, no, you don't. You can't have both teams. It just doesn't work that way. He's 15. No, he's not.
Is
really
he?
7.
Oh yeah, I'm sure you said earlier he was 7. I thought you might have had more than
Yeah.
one.
I do actually, but she's like not very old at all. She's 3 months old.
Yes, I heard. Did you name that one Messi as well? Are all of your kids called Messi?
She's called Mbappe
Ah, excellent.
Yeah.
So she's
Ever
hopeful.
because I'm half French. Yeah.
Oh,
No, she's called Cleo actually, which is very close to Leo. But
it's not a million miles away, is it?
no, it's very.
It wouldn't take what's her name, the Man United supporting bird on a countdown. It wouldn't take very long for her to change the letters on countdown, if indeed that was your 4-letter word, and you got 4 points.
Yeah.
You got to look at
Rachel
it.
Riley.
You got to put it. That's it. You got to put. I used to like her until I found out she was a Man United fan. You can tell from the accent that she's obviously been nowhere near Manchester. Probably doesn't even know where it is on the map.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I was similar. None of my family liked football. They all hated it. I had to sort it out myself. I didn't even care about it until I was about 15. So you had a few years head start on me. So what year was that then when you started getting into Arsenal? Was it back in the glory years?
That was sort of that was like the introduction to it. But because I lived in Surrey and obviously no one would take me to the games, and it was sort of a bit of match of the day. That would have been kind of early 90s. But then I don't really remember much until basically Arsene. Kind of, I remember like Bergkamp signing and all that kind of stuff. The very end of the Graham era.
Wrong button.
Oh,
Ignore that.
switched us around. Yeah, I remember all of that. But yeah, it was kind of Arsene's arrival. I mean, we talk about this kind of in the context of the podcast. Maybe Alex a bit less so because he's memory man and he remembers everything and he can sort of.
And that annoys you.
It does annoy me because Dan and I have terrible memories, except for traumatic events that happened to us when we were children around other friends' houses. But yeah, so then kind of Arsene coming along, and then all of that glorious era, and right up to the present day.
Just leave that there.
Yeah, just kind of, it's just like a great moment, and then just kind of a mush of
Oh
some
dear.
FA Cups.
And then sort of like slowly grinded to a halt, and now it's sport what team you want, son. In fact, if you've got any ideas, I might follow you. Oh, sad times. How about you, Dan? What's your Arsenal supporting story?
Mine's pretty straightforward, really. They were my local team. I grew up in Dalston. I think I was ever so slightly closer to White Hart Lane, but pretty much equidistance from Tottenham and Arsenal. So people in my school either supported one or the other. But my primary school was on Holloway Road, actually right next door to the town hall where Arsenal would go, and on Upper Street, sorry, not Holloway Road, around the corner on Upper Street. So near the town hall where Arsenal used to go and show off the trophies we'd won. And the club used to give my school tickets to games if they hadn't sold them all, and you could go as a school trip. So the very first game I went to was actually as a school trip. I went with my whole class, and we went to, it was 93. It was a home leg in the Cup Winners' Cup, I think. And it was just, I was just in love from the moment I stepped into Highbury, to be honest. It was, I mean, it's only in the last few years, in my memory, the game finished 0-0. But I've looked back, and it was actually a 1-1 draw. But I think I was
it
so
against BK Odense from Denmark?
It was indeed, yes.
I was at that game, 29th of September 1993.
There you go. That was my very first.
I don't remember seeing a small child with a beard.
No, I was waving. I was looking for you. But I think the thing more than what was going on the pitch was the crowd. I remember just looking around so much and feeling part of this thing, and that really, that was it for me. I think I went to a few more games that season when I could through school, and so I wasn't sort of regularly going to games for a good few years, but I was an Arsenal supporter from that night, basically.
Tom, did you say when the first game you went to?
Well, I didn't go until I never went to Highbury. There's so many sort of outing things of me that are happening on this podcast that I felt.
I mean, you're choosing to out yourself, basically.
Well, I don't know. What else can I do? I can't lie.
Most people lie and say they were Anfield '89 when they bloody weren't.
Yeah, that's true. Maybe I should. I went to that. I just never went to Highbury. No one ever took me, and I lived in Sussex, and I went to uni in West London, and I don't know. I guess I had other priorities when I was at university in terms of spending my money. So yeah, basically it was the Emirates. I think it would have been. I don't even remember. It was that sort of unmemorable. I went to watch Arsenal at Wembley actually. In the Champions League against AIK Solna.
I was there for that game.
It was a 1-1 draw, and we ended up winning 3-1. And I think Henry scored, but I can't.
I've got really fond memories of that. The years that we played Champions League football at Wembley. I know it was a pain in the arse and it was a stupid idea, but I saw a lot of good games. And it was some great players and stuff. Then
should we have moved to Wembley instead of built the Emirates? Hot take.
We nearly did, didn't we, for a while?
Yeah,
that's what David Dean wanted to happen, wasn't it?
That was on the cards. Yeah.
Would it have worked out for the best? I mean, it would have been pretty shit to be in Wembley.
Shithole. If we think North London's, a lot of London's a shithole. Wembley is an even bigger shithole. It's a nightmare to get to, and I wouldn't want to leave anything parked there for more than 10 minutes. It'll get nicked or set fire to. I'm not a big fan of London. I can say that. I was born in Putney, so I'm allowed.
Emirates Stadium is pretty soulless, but at least it's there. You know,
Yeah.
it's where the club is from, kind of thing. If we were in Wembley, I feel any connection any sort of small connections we still have would be totally gone by now, to be honest.
True. It's like Brentford's new ground. Have you seen the aerial photo of that? Between that and Griffin Park, you could kick a ball from one to the other in about 2 or 3 kicks, which is.
Well,
really
the
good.
thing is, the Emirates isn't far away. It just it's not a Grade 1 listed beautiful building with marble halls and all of the kind of grandeur that came with Highbury, the stadium that I never went to.
That you never went to.
So yeah,
that's funny that we were at the same game, Danny.
Yeah, I was just looking. I've got a list of every game I've ever been to, 374 of them, and I looked at the Wembley ones, and I went to the first 2, and I didn't go to the third one because I hated Wembley that much, and so I only went there for those 2, and I went there for the '98 final and the '88 League Cup final that we lost against Luton, and I hate it. I've still not been back, mainly because I stopped going to football for a decade. But yes, and it's a good job that we didn't move to Wembley. I'd rather we didn't move because it's not really worked out very well for it, has it?
No, it was seemed like the right idea at the time. The way that football finances worked when that decision was made, it made a lot of sense. We weren't to know that a load of Russians and Middle Easterns were going to come in with loads of money and kind of change the whole paradigm. And also, I suppose,
I mean, the telly money that came in. Yeah, now, I think we could, we'd be fine if we were in a 38,000. We could have extended Highbury a little bit. I think Alex has often said, the smart thing would have been to buy a few more of the houses around the ground, sort of in the 80s and 90s with the view to eventually expand the stadium slightly. But it's never felt the same since we left Highbury, has it really? It's always felt like different.
There was a planning permission. There was an article, and I've got a copy of it. Someone down scanned it, and we had got planning permission to renovate Highbury to fill in the corners. I think it was to have made it a 40,000, 42,000, something like that. And would much rather they'd have done that because that's our home. I hate the Emirates, Ashburton Grove, whatever you want to call it. Horrible place. But it's just wrong people own the club. Let me buy the club and I'll move us all back to Highbury. But you're right, Dan. They should have looked at this over those years. Around the houses around Highbury, you could back in the 60s and 70s, you could have bought those for 10, 15 grand a house. I mean, now they're probably £500,000 a house or something like that, some of them. And then even if you just knock them all down, bribe a few people at the council and have nothing there, or turn it into a car park, and then maybe one day go, we might need that to go and expand into. I mean, when they moved into Highbury, that block of flats at the back of the clock end wasn't there. I think that was it might have been a school or something. I remember seeing really old pictures of it. There was nothing, then there was something, and now there's flats. But the whole thing's been built on a hill as well. That's got to have made it hard because going up and down that hill outside the East Stand, that thing was a nightmare. That's probably had a few people over on their arse over the years. Right, Tom. First Arsenal podcast you remember listening to, and how did you find it?
Well, I don't listen to very many, and never have done. So I'm trying to think.
Say your own.
No, well, it would be the Tuesday Club.
Yep, that was mine.
And I'm not quite sure what's happening with them this season. They put out a tweet the other day saying that they're kind of not necessarily feeling it straight away. I don't know who runs it. Does Alan run the Twitter account? Because he was saying he was basically on holiday and he just didn't want to think about Arsenal. I know he's got his own one,
but I always thought it was. I think he does. Yeah, because he's always moaning about getting more followers since someone stole their username because they shut down their Twitter account, didn't they?
Right.
And now they've got not you. Is it not you, Bentley?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So but yeah, that was the one that kind of was first introduced to, and I think that's kind of that was I guess in part the model that we wanted to try and emulate to an extent with the Bruised Banana. I mean, obviously we're different age demographic, and we don't have all the recollections of all those games in the 70s and stuff like they do. But I think the kind of...
We don't have Jonathan Creek on our podcast.
No, that's a shame. We don't actually have any.
He's a miserable fucker in real life, though, isn't he? I get the feeling he's not a very nice bloke. I mean, not horrible.
No, I get that impression too.
If you met him somewhere, he wouldn't want to talk to you. But I got accosted in my high street in Huntingdon a few weeks ago by someone who I'd been chatting to, and I was talking to him for about 10 minutes. Yeah, nice.
And you're even more famous than Alan. That's the thing, isn't it? So
yeah, but you haven't let it change you.
Exactly. If you can kind of remain civil, then why can't he? So yeah, that was the kind of the introduction to it, and I think the thing with me is like I don't immerse myself completely. I kind of I think if I spend too much time kind of reading Arsenal stuff and getting into it, then I go a bit crazy. So I never try and position myself as any sort of expert, as obviously evidenced by the fact that, you know, I didn't go to a game until quite late, and I forget half of the ones that I have been to anyway. So yeah, it was kind of trying to, you know, follow that model a little bit when we set up our podcast. But I liked the kind of irreverence of that one, and the fact they didn't sort of, although they would go off on rants, they didn't necessarily take it too seriously. And it wasn't kind of analysing tactics or any of that kind of stuff. It was more just sort of a chat amongst friends that obviously get on really well, and it kind of felt like you were just earwigging in on their pub conversation, you know. So yeah, I think Dan's probably listened to a few more than I have.
What's yours then, Dan?
I mean, I think my first one is probably Tuesday Club as well, but the one I listened to regularly for a long time was Arsblog. I listened to that, you know, Arsblog, Arscast. That was I mean, a mate of mine put me onto it. I wasn't sort of looking. I think I'd read the blog every now and again, but wasn't massively tuned into it. And I think, you know, it was just like he was putting content out so regularly. It was nice to have something to engage with after games in that way. So yeah, I listened to that regularly for quite a long time, for quite a few years. Like Tom, it's weird. I mean, we sort of set up a podcast at a time in our lives when we were our relationship with Arsenal was probably at its loosest, weakest. You know, obviously when, you know, from the age of when I first started going to sometime in my 20s, late 20s, it's everything to you, isn't it? And 15, 16, 17, I can remember just this all I wanted to talk about and think about and things. So it's, yeah, weirdly we've set up a podcast probably at the wrong time, but there you go.
I do often wonder what it would have been like doing a podcast in the 98 to 2004 years.
Yeah,
makes me giddy just thinking about it.
Imagine all the stuff you'd have to talk about. Yeah, it'd be brilliant.
Would it have been that good? Because we, I mean, Dan especially tends to like our episodes where we've lost. He always says those are his favourite to listen to. And
to be honest, I think it's because I do feel there's always more to talk about. When you've won, you enjoy the victory, and I almost always feel like, well, we should just be in the pub doing this. Like, why? We don't need to record the enjoyment. Whereas when we've lost, I feel like it's cathartic for us, and then you can provide maybe some crumbs of comfort for the listeners.
Yeah, I think the sort of, as the podcast has gone on, the kind of the underlying like meta narrative of what the podcast is about is actually, I'm going to say this semi-seriously, semi-joking, is actually about like therapy and our own kind of at times wavering mental health. Because what we've said is that, you know, the kind of reason why we come back to it is because it, especially, you know, watching football remotely these days and everything that happened during lockdown and everything, is like, it gives you that connection, that sense of like being in something with other people, the sense of the feeling of community. And that is like somehow even more powerful when you're maybe not doing as well, or things are a bit of a struggle. You kind of, sometimes people can get at each other's throats, and you obviously see that on Twitter massively. Like that's a horrible place to go and try and read any sort of discourse. But what we kind of see with it, because so many of the interactions that we have with our lovely little, group of people that listen to us is so positive and so kind of open, that it gives you that space to kind of work through some of that stuff. And sometimes it's not always about football. Sometimes it's about other things that are going on in your life. Is that too deep? Have I made it too deep too early? It's only half an hour in.
No, that's fine. You got a good point. It's I often think that our podcast has become more about just being mates now, because Ellis can never do shows because he saves lives. He works at the NHS. He works in A&E, and he says, "Oh, well, I can't do a show. Why don't you just kick me out?" I say, Ellis, it's not about a podcast now. We're all mates. And then we end it with #FuckEllis. And that is actually a hashtag. If you go and look for it, most of our listeners will know if they use Twitter. Carl invented it, #FuckEllis. And we've been saying that for a few years. And that's for a bloke who's working on the front line of battling against COVID and saving people's lives. And that's the kind of respect he gets from us. We have his own hashtag. Who come up with the name Bruised Banana Podcast? Because when I first saw it, I thought, now that is a fantastic name for a podcast.
God, I'm not even fully certain. We had so many different options and things that we thought of. And then, wherever that it's like band name origins, isn't it? I think we probably all want to lay claim to having chosen it.
We definitely were. There was a period of throwing names around quite a lot, I remember, and trying to work out, we did talk early on about not having red branding, red artwork, because we felt, there was as we were talking about before we started recording, there's a lot of Arsenal podcasts out already by the time we came into the arena. So that was something we thought fairly early on that might separate us a bit, wasn't it? Was the colour of the branding kind of thing.
We thought, if someone was scrolling through the 60 or 70 odd Arsenal podcasts that were around at the time and they saw one that was yellow, they might be like, "Oh, it's a bit different."
A Borussia Dortmund podcast.
But it did. I think our podcast came out a year or two, maybe 2 seasons before the re-release of the shirt. So suddenly that gave it a whole new sort of lease of life. I think that people were paying a bit more attention to.
Well, we were the reason why Adidas went with it, weren't we? They obviously
convinced,
saw how well we were doing and thought, we got to bring that one back.
Yeah,
and now, gosh,
someone from Adidas was one of our 10 listeners at the time and thought that's what we need to do.
That's 10 listeners, including the 3 of us listening to it as well.
Yeah.
But now, we've got so many great looking retro kits, haven't we? And that's some crumb of comfort that we look good. What did Alex say the other day? We might be shit, but we've got zigzags on our shirt.
It's true.
That's very. Is that before Alex went off to join the Squishy Plums podcast for Moldovan football? Is that why he's not here?
Yeah, no, he's got a lot of other podcast commitments now. He's become quite famous as for his memory man at Wikipedia.
The Rain Man of the podcast world.
And the way that he corrals those anagrams. I think, we might just make the podcast be about anagrams from now on, because that's more or less the only bit that brings me any enjoyment. If anyone doesn't listen to the podcast, if anyone doesn't listen, we do anagrams for all of our new signings, which means we get to do, if everything that's coming out tonight about Ødegaard and Ramsdale is true, we get to do some new ones on the next episode.
Some good fodder. Some lovely. Nothing's going to beat Ken Balboa and the Gerbil Batsman. That should be an indie band from the 60s. But you get annoyed, don't you? You made up a new rule. If you're going to have an anagram, what was the rule?
Oh no, well, Dan just said Dan didn't like Ben White's one because it didn't move enough letters around.
It just felt like easy. That's all.
Yeah, but
I know technically it was an anagram. All I was pointing out was it was a shit anagram.
But the thing is, with the anagrams for players, I don't know where this started, but as Dan mentioned on the last episode, we genuinely, there was somewhere that was what we called the player. Jovino was hovering. We could just call him hovering. And Ospina
was always pianos to us.
So I think
that started Like I think Alex was doing that kind of thing, maybe like sixth form. Like he was doing weird player anagrams way back when.
Yeah, he's very good at Scrabble. Is our Alex.
Yes, so there is a new rule that you've got to move more than one word. Otherwise, it's not going to count anymore, is it?
Yeah, that's what we're saying.
Yeah, or if it's a player like Ben White, just use his middle name, or use
Which
Benjamin
I didn't know.
rather than just.
His name was William, isn't it? I think that's what you said it was.
I
think so, yeah.
I genuinely forgotten. So.
Yes. Well, you did record it. What? It's God, what day is it today? It's the 18th. 9 days ago. You released it 9 days ago. I think I heard it last week, so I'm not too sure what it was. So what we're going to talk about next is what made you decide to get into podcasting, Tom? What was it? Who made the first step, and who invited who? And because you also do the retro thing, which I quite like, of no video, no YouTube. I mean, you don't do videos on YouTube. It's just three blokes talking. So although I've been listening to you for years, I had no idea what any of you looked like until I was tweeting you and you put up pictures. And even then I wasn't sure, because I thought Dan looked a bit like a photo fit.
We could be lying. I just look like a photo fit of Alex and Tom is what I look like.
That's it.
What I will say is deep fake technology has got very good. We haven't had to reveal our true appearances. Well, I sort of work in kind of radio-ish. I work for a media company. So, the idea of it was never too far away. And then I think basically what it was when we sort of knew that the writing was on the wall with Wenger, and we'd had this sort of idea bubbling away of doing a podcast for a while. We thought, wouldn't it be good to kind of launch our podcast as a new Arsenal podcast for a new era? And we would use it as a way of chronicling the post Arsene era, which I think we always had a sense was going to be slightly turbulent.
It felt like such a big thing, like you were saying, Tom. Basically, for me, Tom and Alex, almost our entire Arsenal memories. Well, not Alex, because his memories go back to when he was in the womb,
to previous lifetimes.
But for me and Tom, anyway, like Wenger was Arsenal as far as we were concerned. Any real memories, all the good feelings came from his teams. So it suddenly you were. I mean, in the same way we have been over the last few years now, but you're thrown into this place of like, what, where do my loyalties lie, and what bit of the club do I love? Like, this huge part of it is just leaving. I think as fans, I remember there was a lot of chat in the pub about it, wasn't there? Like how we felt with him going. And that's not to say, I think we all at the time felt that he needed to go and it was the right time. Well, it would have been the right time a few years before, but it still didn't mean that we weren't sort of forlorn and wondering what was going to come next. So yeah, like Tom said, it seemed like quite a good time to do it. We just thought if we are going to do it, it's sort of now or never kind of thing, because we could use the new era as a launching pad for our podcast, which is basically what we did. I think our very first episode was a season preview, wasn't it, of Emery's first season in charge. So we did manage to get our acts together and get it out sort of alongside that changing of the guard.
Yeah, and I think the idea was always that it was going to be, like you were mentioning, Danny, about not having video and YouTube and all that kind of stuff. And obviously, the way you guys do it without the editing and having the videos and stuff, we wanted to have something that was a little bit more, I guess, produced. Like we wanted to have like fun little stings that we would make and kind of structure it a little bit more. And as we've gone along, that has become a little bit less. Like we are a little bit more. Because I think we're more.
I was going to say, Tom, don't you think, like for me anyway, I remember making decisions like that because we basically thought we weren't going to be good at, like, we didn't know if we were going to be good at podcasting. So we thought if we can disguise the shit podcast we do with music and jingles and,
it's like
and if we edit it, we can.
If you bake a really bad cake, you'd like
put loads of icing
it
on top.
in like icing and chocolate and hundreds of thousands. That's what we were trying to do.
So I think that was our. Sorry, go on, Danny.
No, that's all right. I've got another question after.
I was just going to say, yeah, that was our starting point, wasn't it? I think the reason we were like, let's get some really basic editing software that we can work out, and because we were like, it might be shit, but maybe we can polish the turd slightly with some editing and some stings.
So when you have 2 breaks, don't you? You go, we'll be back after this little break. Do you actually stop for any length of time between that? Or do you go, we're back after this little break, cough, fart, drink, carry on 30 seconds later? Or is
this is very, what the Americans would call inside baseball. I don't know if we want to reveal.
That's it. I was going to wonder if your secrets.
I like it. No,
podcast together.
It's nice being asked these questions. I like it.
Usually the first break we do stop, because then what we do is we save the file that we're recording into so that it doesn't if it corrupts or goes wrong or anything.
Yeah. From bitter experience, that is, Danny. We've done ones where we've lost. Early on we were losing stuff. So
I did that with Raphael Honigstein, and he wouldn't come back for a repeat for about 6 months. He didn't come back, so we lost the entire thing. And one of Chris does the football hipsters. Is there a cat there? Hello, Betty. Did the football hipsters, and I forgot to press record, and so they did a 2.5 hour show, and I went, sorry, Chris. I said, well, there you go. You should learn how to record your own fucking shows then, shouldn't you? Shouldn't he, Betty? Yes, he should, you smelly ass.
Fucking hell, 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
That is the
Well, that's not bad. That's 2 out of best part of 900 shows I've messed up.
Yeah, that's not too bad.
Not a bad
race. We lost one once, didn't we?
We lost the whole show, I remember the pits of despair. We were just like, fuck it, let's not do the podcast anymore then.
Such a good episode. It was such a good episode. So many pearls of wisdom was said. We basically predicted everything that went on to happen.
I think we tend to, like, in terms of the breaks now, we just take it like if we're on a roll and we're all feeling good and no one needs a pee and everything, Tom will say we'll be back after this and we just carry on. But equally there might be some issues or someone needs a beer or whatever, but we never stop for very long, do we? Because basically once we start, we sort of get in the groove and the energy's up, and you just want to keep going, because if it gets too choppy, I think you can tell, it feels a bit more stilted. So we usually we meet up. We say we meet up at the moment. Obviously, we get on Zoom and we chat for 45 minutes of nonsense, and then we start recording. So often it can be like 3 hours of evening.
But isn't there some gold sprinkled into that 45 minutes? We go, you turn up at 8, Chris turns up at 8:15, and then we start going. We don't talk about anything until the show starts. And then we talk. I think we can probably talk if there's 4 of us, we could talk for about 4 or 5 hours continuously and never run out of stuff to talk about and never need a break. And
I mean, we often say, like, save it. We'll be chatting.
Yeah.
Save that. So we try and steer clear of the football chat in that first bit, don't we? We're just catching up on, because although we're WhatsApping each other every day, but we don't really catch up properly in between at the moment, do we? We don't get to see each other that much, and we're not doing Zoom calls and stuff. So we have 45 minutes of how's your week been? Try and steer clear of the football chat, and then once we're a bit loosened up, we hit record basically.
I do notice that with my ones, there's a few of them that will do ums and ers, but it only lasts about 4 or 5 minutes. And once they warm up, then all those ums, ers, gaps and spaces, they all disappear. Many years ago, I used to edit all that lot out. In fact, one time, it seems like I'm always picking on Chris, but he loves it. He was hosting a show, and he used to go, and I had about 1.5 minutes of every one of those I'd taken out of an 1.5 hour show, put them all together using Audacity into one file and added it onto the end of the podcast. And he thought it's hilarious. And then in fact, when I was doing, we did the interview shows and he did my one, he mentioned it. So I put it on the end of the podcast again. So if anybody wants to listen to that, you probably heard it. Because we used to do this thing with the extras. We go, thank you very much, everybody. Good night. And then say to everyone, no one talk. Wait 10 seconds. And then we'd all start talking again. So people would often turn it off and they go, I left it on by accident and you lot were still talking. And then we do like maybe 10, 15, 20 minutes of us just talking like you do at the beginning of your show. We do that at the end of the show. And
the secret track on an album.
That is exactly the thing. But then my lot, they're in a hurry to go because Yeah, so we stopped doing that. And then I say to them, I'll put in the chat, don't forget 10 seconds of silence, and then we just talk about any old shit. And they'll all forget. And then they'll say, right, I'm off there. And I go, but we're meant to be doing the secret special, the special magic thing for our wonderful listeners. Oh, no, I've got to go. I've got to go and have some.
So is that like a Patreon thing that you do?
Oh, no, we don't do any of that lot. No, we don't make any money from it anymore. We turned it all off because you.
Oh, do you not? Oh, we make thousands. We make so much money you wouldn't believe. It's unbelievable. All this retro clobber.
Yeah,
it's just all paid for off the thousands of pounds that we make.
My floor is just strewn with £50 notes. You can't see, but I trip up when I get up. It's ridiculous.
Wow. Yeah. So we did make money once in a while. We used to make a few £100 a month with donations. That's money when Jason was running it, because he'd get people so angry they'd throw money at him to shut up and read out his comments. Sometimes, I think one time we had a £50 donation during the show, but then YouTube take 33% of that. And then because we're not a company, you have to be tax registered now. And if you don't, they take over 60%. So I turned off everything and said, no, we're not having you give us £1. And if YouTube takes 66 pence of that, I'd rather get nothing. And so and one of our kind listeners in Canada, he knows who he is if he's listening, he chucked a load of money at us. It cost us about 90 quid a year, about 150 quid a year to run it. That's with the SoundCloud, owning the URL, because they trick you with that. You pay the URL, it's £1. You think, oh, that's all right. Every year after that, it's 15 quid a year. And the website costs us about 60 quid a year. So for about 150 quid, we got it. So our mate in Canada gave us enough for, I think, a year and a half.
That's really nice.
It's good. Yeah. And we've got some money saved up at the moment in the ABW funds. I can't say how much it is, because all of a sudden everybody would need a new mouse and keyboard, or a new chair, or a new something. So I don't tell them how much we got, but we got enough to last us probably about 4 seasons. They'll never figure out how much that is.
We did. I mean, right at the beginning, the main thing we decided was we were just doing it for fun. Like, we never imagined we'd get to the point we have, where we've got so many great listeners and so many interactions. So all of that has been a massive surprise, a really lovely surprise. But we still want to, we still say to each other, like, if this stops being fun, we will just stop doing it. We shouldn't ever do it for anyone else. First and foremost, it's for the three of us to do and to enjoy. And there was a point, not that like last year or maybe a season and a half ago, where we were talking about like Patreon or getting in some ads, or just expanding slightly and doing more with it. But even the conversation started to make the three of us feel, it felt a bit more like a job suddenly, or like, where you're like, well, we've all got real jobs, and do we want to be in the week trying to work out, Patreon pages and whatever, or should we just record on the days we want to record, enjoy what we do, and just keep going like that, basically? So that's what we've decided.
Yeah, absolutely. And have our nice little community of people that we are in contact with, like, I think the thing for us as well has been, like you were mentioning, Danny, like having a listener out in Canada that's been really supportive. We've got listeners, especially in like North America, but like in other parts of the world as well. And we've had emails from people in Australia and stuff like that. And I think that's been a really nice part of it, is like just that connection with other people in other parts of the world. And again, like especially during lockdown, it sort of expanded the people that we're talking to, and just really made us feel like we're actually, I don't know, doing something that people enjoy and kind of gives them, something in their week to look forward to, even if it is just us waffling on about absolutely nothing, and being sad that we've lost again, or whatever it is that's happened.
It is weird, because I look at things like, I watch a lot of Joe Rogan, and I watch the Tuesday, listen to the Tuesday Club, and Mark Kermode and Mayo's film review, and I'm part of their audience. And it'd be like, if they contacted me, I'll be thinking, they're talking to me. What? Oh, hello. And I've talked to a few people, and they've gone, I can't believe I'm speaking to you. And I think, what? No, that's not right. I'm just somebody who talks on that. But then you think, a lot of people become like virtual friends with you, although they never speak to you. They like hearing your voices, and they like hearing your opinions, and they know little quirky bits about you or your show, and it gives them something to look forward to or listen to. Well, I do with all those podcasts I listen to. And Chris is the same. He listens to loads of podcasts. And it's, you do, I think, Friday, Kermode and Mayo, right, that's 2 hours of my day. Or the Nick Abbott from LBC, when he does his whole show thing, I plan and have nothing going on for the next 2.5 hours while I listen to that. And I look forward to it. And then you think, I don't think of myself in that same position where people look forward to anything that I do. I mean, those numbers are dwindling as the years go by. The glory days of getting 30,000 views per show. Jesus, no one will get that now unless you're Arsblog. And even then, I think everyone's just so many podcasts. That's
the thing. It's just all spread out now, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's ridiculous.
I'd hate to be a new podcast now, because there are some podcasts that I know, like I had Tanner and Glenn and Stan on from the Bearded Gooner Media. They do stuff, and they are doing 2 or 3 shows a week. They're working their asses off, and then you're not getting thousands of listens for doing that a lot. And then if I was a new podcast, I'd think, I don't know if I can really be bothered. But then it comes back to what you were saying, Dan. Once it stops being fun and a group of friends, which is one of the reasons ABW have stopped every single show, stopped doing live, and gone back to doing the easy thing, just friends having a chat and recording it. Because we got to the point last season where I didn't even want to watch Arsenal, let alone podcast about it. And it's over the Peak Emery and Peak Arteta. You don't want to do podcasts like that, but what you do want to do is have a chat with your mates, don't you?
Yeah,
but it's not even the managers. For me, at least, I don't mind the idea that we would have, bad managers or bad players or whatever. To me, it's what happened, with the Super League last season, and it's the ownership. And that is where the kind of real rot of dissatisfaction and disinterest resides. Like, that's where it kind of feels bit more meaningless and pointless. And I think that's
I think we talked about it on the show we did after the Super League stuff, which came out quite a few weeks later, because the 3 of us were genuinely we were like, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't even know if I want to watch Arsenal play a game ever again. You know what I mean? You suddenly felt so fractured, your relationship with the club. And I mean, it's been bad for quite a while. That thing, it's been stretched and stretched, hasn't it? Your connection to the club, like we were talking about earlier, moving from Highbury, like everything about it. The more and more it's become a business, the less connection you felt. But the Super League stuff felt like that was it, the final straw for quite a while for us anyway. I mean, and many other Arsenal fans. But like we talked about, what we came back to is actually, we still enjoy talking to each other. Even if we're talking about stuff that's making us miserable, we're getting something from that. And if we're getting something from that, hopefully some people listening to it might get something from that. And it, so it does. It's weird, isn't it? Some of the best interactions we've had from listeners, emails or messages or whatever, the football is almost irrelevant. The things they're telling us about, we've started, they'll tell you about their kids or their lives and whatever. And Arsenal is the sort of just the starting point. Yeah. And then it becomes so much more than that, doesn't it? Which is, again, like I said, it's such a surprise.
It's like that in so many instances. I mean, if it didn't exist, we wouldn't be having this conversation. I mean, we don't know each other. Like, we've had some interactions on Twitter, but then you sit down and you have a chat with people. I mean, with the Super League stuff, I sort of, at the end of that episode, asked for people to write in and let us know how they were feeling about the club. And it felt like, as I was saying it, I was like, oh, that'll be a nice bit of content for the next episode. Like, that was sort of half of what I was thinking as I was saying it. Obviously, nice to hear what people think, but you're also thinking, like, it's always good to have listener correspondence. But then when we actually got those emails in, a few of them, I didn't want to read them out on the podcast or anything, or because it was, unless we'd have gone to those people and said, and I'm sure they wouldn't have minded really, but there was some
really heartfelt stuff there, wasn't there?
Yeah. And so it kind of felt a little bit, I don't know, it just felt a bit personal, and maybe without kind of getting their express permission or even having them on or whatever, maybe they wouldn't want to overshare. A bit like I overshared at the beginning of this chat when I told that story about when I was a child. But yeah, that was it, and it kind of circles back to that thing that I was saying earlier about the place that the podcast and the interactions that we has now for us. With I think the last 18 months that we've all been through, where I think, like, you know, whatever your experience has been like over the last year and a half, you'll have had some pretty hard times, even regardless of anything to do with football. You know, it's been really hard for a lot of people, and so, you know, audio is such a kind of immediate personal medium. Like, you put your headphones on, or you listen on your stereo or whatever. I mean, most people, I think, listen with headphones. That other person is right in your ear talking to you, and
you often talk back to them.
Yeah.
Especially if you disagree with what they're saying.
Especially if they're saying something completely idiotic about Arsenal.
It's very intimate media. It's probably one of the most, because I don't use headphones. I live in a house on my own most of the time. And so when it's just me, and I listen it to my tax dodging fuckers devices. I've got a million of them scattered around the house. And so I usually Bluetooth it from my phone and do that a lot. And it's got to the point with Nick Abbott. Have anyone ever heard of Nick Abbott on LBC?
Yeah, I mean, I actually work for the company that owns LBC. So yes.
Oh, global.
Yeah,
lovely. Yeah, well, Nick Abbott I've been listening to him for 15 years, and even now I know what's going to come up next. And you go, no, yes, oh, Bruce, or any of that lot, and I know what's coming up, and then I'll say it, and then I'll laugh as he says it, and I think it's just absolutely magnificent. And there's so many of those other things, like Joe Rogan. You really feel that he's given everything. He's been his honest self while he's doing it. And things like the Tifo podcast, that's a really good podcast, where really informative. And now they've got Tifo. They're doing another one with a Scottish bloke, Tifo, and then some letters after it. That's a new one.
It's that guy called JJ or something.
Is he Scottish?
Yeah, I watched a YouTube video
on the Arsenal and tactics. We had the board.
No, this was them playing Football Manager, and
he's got a new one out where he's using a digital, the little circle things, and he's moving around and going, well, just explaining that all we did against Brentford was give it to Tierney, run down the right, cross it to no one. He's going, this person can't header, this person. It's only 15 minutes long, so go find it on YouTube. And he's on Twitter, and he's wearing an Arsenal shirt. He has got the O2 bright yellow one that you always associate Kleb. I think Kleb wore it. Yes. So just the whole thing about podcasts is, if you don't, that's what I say to people. I've had big accounts and small accounts, and loads of people. I've been doing this for 9 years. Have Twitter DM'd me or tweeted me and asked for just a little bit of advice, only because I've been doing it for so long, not because I know what I'm on about. And I say the most important thing: if you don't enjoy it, don't do it. Don't ever do it for money, because you will have to work your ass off, and then you'll do it so much. No, we don't. So you just turn your camera off and then disappear to your cell next door. Then they won't know that you need a wee. I'm not going to tell them. So that Guinness that he's been drinking.
Yeah.
So have you got any other things about the podcast that now that Tom's gone that you want to grass up, or maybe anything about Alex? Because it seems like
I hate recording it with Tom.
Something like that.
No, I mean it's been an interesting season and a bit for our podcast, because we've been through some pretty dark times as Arsenal supporters, haven't we? And you do, like you said, last season you didn't even want to watch it, let alone talk about it, in between times. And we felt exactly the same. So I think I'm really pleased that we've got to a point where we're all on the same page about if we're not going to talk about the games we're not going to do a weekly one and dissect the game in all its minutiae and whatever. We'll just be Arsenal fans and talk about how we're feeling about being Arsenal fans. And so I think the podcast this season will be slightly different than it was last season, because we were doing as much as possible, reactions to the Europa League games, reactions to the league games, and I think we were almost putting out one a week. Not quite, but as much as possible.
Sometimes you'd have gaps where you wouldn't put one out for 2 or 3 weeks, though.
Yeah, and that would just be, to be honest, it would be one or other us saying, I can't do it this Saturday, and one of us couldn't do it the next Saturday, and, just real life sort of getting in the way kind of thing. And because we've done a few shows. I think all of us at some point have done a show without one of the others. So me and Alex have done some, and me and Tom have done some, and they've done a couple without me. But by and large, we know it works best when there's the three of us, and so we've just sort of decided if it means taking a week or two break, we'll just do that now, and we'll come back when the three of us are ready to go and up for it, kind of thing. So, like I said, we've tried not to let it dictate other things. We do it when it's fun. We do it when we can do it, and we all three of us can sit down together and enjoy a few hours in each other's company, basically.
So is there a reason? I don't remember you ever having guests on, and I think I quite like that. I think I like the fact it's just you three all the time. Have you had any guests on, Tom?
We haven't. I just had to go. Someone's going to be listening on audio. They're going to wonder where I went. I had to go to the toilet there. I also had to I had to remove the early '90s Arsenal goalkeeper top that I was wearing because it's
got blood on it. You got shanked in the toilet
of synthetic fibers, and I was getting so hot that
we thought it was an allergic reaction to the beer, didn't we?
Yeah, maybe that as well.
We didn't have a guest on, but do you remember about a guest? But I did.
Well, we've done some interviews, but the best guest we ever had was Alex's dad.
We did one episode fairly early on where Alex couldn't make it, so me and Tom went over to his dad's flat and we sat and recorded with his dad.
His dad's Greek.
His dad is very Greek. Yeah.
I found out my DNA. I'm 14% Greek.
Well, there you go.
Might be
and then my daughter
Alex
said to me yesterday, she went, "Always thought you looked a bit Greek. You're very hairy and fat."
Andreas would love to meet you and chat about that. We should point out he's Greek Cypriot. I think that's important.
That is very important. Yeah. Yes.
So yeah, we had Alex's dad on once. We also had a mutual friend of ours who does other podcasts, a guy called Adam, who runs a company called Pod Bible, who cover a lot of stuff that goes on in the podcast industry. We had him on as a guest once, and then I went and
interviewed Will McGee, who's a sports journalist that I'd done some work with, and he was up for sitting and having a chat. So that's probably it. Is it?
We've kind of played around with it. I mean, none of those things were like disastrous per se. Like it's no slight on any of those people, but I just think we always go back to the kind of chemistry of just the three of us chatting, and that's just kind of our safe, happy place that we like to go in. I mean, one of the things you mentioned in the notes that you sent over to me before this, Danny, was low moments.
Don't make it sound organised. It was one badly structured paragraph.
I'm trying to make you sound professional. And you slid into my DMs. You slid into our DMs. Asked us to come on this. You were talking about like low moments. So in the first season, and we're really sad this season that we obviously can't do it because one of the things we love doing is previewing the random Europa League opponents that we play.
Checking out if it's actually a spelling mistake or a real team.
Yeah.
And talking about their badges. And we played, God, what were they even called? Poltava. What was their full name, Dan? Can you remember?
No, I can't because all I can think of is the planet.
Vorskla. That was it. Vorskla. They were called Vorskla Poltava. And they were Ukrainian, I want to say.
Is that the one with the yellow badge?
Oh God, I genuinely can't remember. And we talked about them, and we talked about the fact that their previous president had been assassinated. Do you remember this, Dan?
I do. Yeah. Now you mentioned it.
We talked about how their previous and the way that Alex delivered it on the podcast, he was like giving us a load of facts of stuff, like funny things that had happened to them, and then he just dropped in this thing of like, and their president was assassinated. So we just laughed because it was like almost like a nervous reaction to this thing happening. Put the podcast out. This Ukrainian journalist found us on Twitter and was like, "What are you doing, laughing about the death of the president?" And we were like, and it was like, "Oh my God, like he's going to come and kill us." But then we flipped it and we kind of made friends with him and sort of said, no, blah, blah, blah. But we'd love to like talk about the club if you want to do it. So then I set up this interview where I interviewed him, and we had like an hour chat or something, and I was going to edit it down and put it in the podcast. Whole file just corrupted. But it was this really weird corruption where he sounded
I've forgotten about that. It was like really choppy.
he sounded like. Do you remember the robot aliens from the Smash advert? That was how he sounded.
Yes, I know that.
And so I think
That
we did
was a
that with
real
a few
low
things, and I think we've just kind of realised that, like, you know, just like you were saying about having Rafa Honigstein on, like whenever you try and get guests on, as you're doing right now with us,
Something might go wrong.
You're asking for trouble.
That's the great thing about StreamYard is it's free and it never ever goes wrong. Now I'm the host of this. If my internet shut down, it'll carry on going with you two, which we found out. Yeah, so that's then I could come in on use it on my phone, and then because everything. But we do pay for the. We pay $240 for a year for it, and that runs out the 29th of August. So then we can have little things, little logos. So it'll have that logo if you don't pay for it. And I'm not paying 240 quid of your sponged money. And then we have there's Femi, there's John, and there's my Egyptian brother, because I'm part Egyptian as well, 4.7%. Richard, and there's the Dirty Pirate, and we've got everybody on here. We even got when Jeff, who used to be part of the podcast, whenever he's in the chat, we put up a Canadian flag, and then you got things down the bottom. Like you can have an overlay like that, which some people like FK, he used to be part of the podcast. He started the podcast with us. He's now got his own one, and he has all these fantastic graphics and these PowerPoint things. And I think we can barely be bothered to turn it on. I don't even brush my beard before the bloody show starts. And then I made this thing in the background. So I went to a website and nicked all the logos. They're actual proper photographs of actual shirts, as you can tell by the bottom right one, just above the yellow. And then you can add all those sort of things on there. Then you can turn the display names on and off, and then you can have nothing.
So sorry, is this an advert?
No, because them fuckers, it's now $200 a year. No,
sounds like a paid promotion for whatever the streaming.
You pay for Zoom, didn't you?
We were using Zoom, but I think we used some kind of Google thing recently. I was going to say on the
Google Hangouts now, don't we?
Yeah, on the subject of graphics, it would be remiss of us not to mention, I think, the number one great thing about our podcast, which is the fact that we have a professional illustrator. And he won't want me to say this, but Dan how long ago was this now when you were mentioned as one of the 50 most influential illustrators in football by 442 magazine? Can you remember that?
Sadly, longer ago. I think it was like 2 years ago.
Yeah, there we go.
2 years ago.
So that's not that long.
Dan is draws for a living, and
so he did your Ian White behind you.
Yeah. So this
is that what I thought he said he bought it for you.
No, I drew that.
No, and actually, this one is only up here until I get the one that is signed by Ian Wright that Dan apparently has that he's going to give to me.
I do have a signed one for you.
Oh, yeah, I'm in contact with the people. Like there's I can't remember their names now. There's a few really decent Arsenal people who do art. I'm going to go and find their names because I've got a link in the Arsenal art. You've got poorly drawn Arsenal. You've got Jamie Fulker, who's JF Doodles. You've got Gunner Balls, and then edits by Ronan. You've got Eddie Longbridge, who's just fantastic. And you've got all those people.
That's a proper illustrator.
He doesn't fuck around.
Yeah,
we're entering the realms of fine art.
So we love all their stuff because they let us use their bits for our JPEGs for the YouTube channel and for our tweets. We use them occasionally. Always put their logo on it if we do use it because I have zero artistic talent. I have none at all, and it's always good to see people that are doing that. Do you make any money from it? Have you got an Etsy or anything like that, or whatever it is the cool people are doing nowadays?
Me?
Yeah.
I mean, it's my job, so I make a living from it, but obviously not just from drawing Arsenal stuff. I don't think I could make a living doing that.
Yeah, you have to do all football. Is it all football or just all anything?
I
see you a dab hand at drawing gerbils and then changing the number and drawing using the same gerbil again.
No, that was a whole new gerbil that he drew.
Was it?
Yeah,
I didn't even twin against the old one.
It was his twin brother.
I think I'm just going to do every week now. We'll just have a gerbil related piece of artwork.
Maybe spin it out into different rodents if we really want to.
But yeah, I mean, I do a lot of football stuff. That's what I like doing. But in between that, I do boring other things as well. I'm actually doing At the moment, I'm working on a job for West Ham, so I'm doing a program cover for West Ham. So
But
it's not.
the reason why he has the Ian Wright signed print is because he did some work for Ian Wright and helped produce some merchandise for him.
I did, yeah. I did a. We released a print together that he sold and gave all the profits to charity. So, but I got to sit with him and sign them all, and it was
Tell
brilliant.
the story of what when you met him, what you said and did.
Did you cry?
What did I do? I can't remember. You'll have to tell it.
You hugged him.
I did hug him a lot.
Told him that you loved him.
Oh yeah.
And then you asked him if you could hug him again.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I do remember.
I bet he smelled wonderful, didn't he?
He smelled incredible, and he was just the nicest man in the world. And he did let me hug him far too often and too hard. Yeah.
I mean, I don't think we necessarily asked explicitly, but Alex and I were angling so hard to be somehow part of that whole thing, weren't we? Somehow get invited along to one of the events, but
yeah. I mean, I'm still hoping we'll do more stuff in the future and he'll become a really good mate. But even if it's just remains that one meeting, that's good enough for me.
So do you want to tout any of your stuff? A couple of thousand, 2,000 or 3,000 people might see this. They get 500, I don't know.
I mean, you can go on my my website is idrawforfood.co.uk.
That's good. That's easy to remember.
I've had that website since I was like 16, so I should have changed it to something more professional. But
no, that works, especially in this day and age of quirkiness.
And obviously, I mean, you can see my work on the Bruised Banana Twitter feed a lot, and I hijack that sometimes and put some of my football illustrations up on there, don't I? So
Dan draws on all the socials, and the ultimate goal is to have something done for the club officially, isn't it? On the program or on social media or something.
That's the dream, is to do an actual Arsenal job. I've had 3 meetings with Arsenal, and like there's always stuff seems like it's going to happen and then doesn't quite. So, but yeah, obviously for me that would be the cherry on the cake, would be to actually get to do a job for the club that I support. So maybe one day.
The problem is you have the conversations and they go and listen to past episodes of the podcast and listen to how much we slag them off.
We cannot get this guy involved at all. Yeah,
you're gonna have to be a shill for the club.
Yeah.
No, what are you on about, Tom? No, they're a great club, well run, everything's fantastic.
Everything's great. Go and buy some of the new shirts.
There's nothing to worry about with this Visit Rwanda sponsorship, and this Socios thing that they're bringing on board with these fan tokens. It's a superb idea. It's a great way to get involved with the club.
Granit Xhaka couldn't pick a better captain.
Xhaka, that's a fantastic contract. Should have given him longer.
Oh dear. Right, talking about the upcoming season, Tom, what's your thoughts on it? Because if you want to turn your camera off and have a little cry, get it out, and then compose yourself and come back again. Are you full of optimism, or are you like the rest of us thinking, I hope the stadium burns down?
Well, I don't hope there's a fire, but I wonder if someone will get fired. I mean, I think I'm not like a vehement Arteta out person, although I do think that he's pretty much a dead man walking at this point. I think it will need quite a turnaround in fortune for him to be our manager long term. What I'm looking at the moment is I'm looking at the fact that we play Chelsea and City in the next 2 games, and then that basically brings us up to September, and then there's the international break. And it's reminding me so much of the end of Emery, and we waited until November to pull the plug on
we
that.
had those the first 2 games of the season, didn't we?
Yeah, and I'm not a kind of sack the manager kind of guy, but what I do worry about is the idea that we'll kind of drag it out and we'll be doing kind of getting someone in desperation in November, December time, where it was the same thing when Emery went. We said it. There's sort of a recurring thing with Arsenal where we wait a little bit too long before we get rid of a manager, right? We did it with Wenger. Should have left after he won the cup final against Chelsea, but he stayed on for that little bit extra longer. And, we're obviously talking about years there rather than months. But I guess, I don't know. I don't really see how it's going to improve. I was reading a thing today that apparently he's got until Christmas. But I think, even if we do get rid of him, it's not going to sort out the larger issues within the club, which is basically that apart from the fact that we've got an absent owner and his bloody Trump son twin kid, Josh, supposedly in charge, below them at every level, we've got rookies basically, in all those positions. And obviously Edu's the one at the moment that's copying a lot of flack on Twitter because he's having too many barbecues and not signing enough players. But they're not. I don't know. It just feels like, if you have one inexperienced person in a high profile position in a club, that's fine. But if all three of your main kind of decision making people are making their first steps into doing that for a living, it's a recipe for disaster. And I think
we are that disaster.
We're the disaster, and fish rots from the head and all that kind of stuff. So I don't know. Is that an answer to your question? I don't think it's going to go very well, and I think people are going to lose their jobs.
So if you had to have a end of season prediction, I know one of you three said exactly what I did and had the same analogy, 888, and then one of you argued and went, "Why is that?" Then you went, "Oh, betting."
I think it was Alex. Alex predicted 888, didn't he? He predicted an 8th place finish, I think.
Yeah. And then I said, would that be the first time we ever finish in the same position 3 years in a row? And he reminded me in a classic Alex style that we did that in the 1930s when we won the league 3 years in a row. And I think one of those happened after Herbert Chapman died.
Did, yes. He died partway through the season, got pneumonia.
Yeah.
And then we won. We finished 4th, 72 seasons in a row.
Yeah, that's true.
And that's a fact. So, Dan, what's your thoughts on the upcoming season? Are you a little bit more pessimistic?
I mean,
I think we'll win the league. By the way, sorry, just
obviously
we'll win the league.
Yeah, women's football,
with Conte in charge. Yeah.
Exactly. Seriously, please.
Yeah.
No, I'm the same. I mean, I'm the same as Tom. Really, it's obviously the next 2 games. It's hard to see us getting anything out of them. The pressure that's already on Arteta is just going to ramp up. I'd be amazed if he was still in charge by Christmas. But as Tom said, then it's like you're halfway through a season. Who are you going to be able to get in? It's that thing of thinking things will get worse before they get better, but I can't see how they're going to get better yet. Because
things are going to get worse before they get worse.
Yeah, things are going to get worse before they get even more worse than they are now.
Great name for a podcast. Episode.
It's tough. I mean, I don't know, trying to be optimistic. Like there are players on the pitch that I'm excited about seeing play. Saka, Emile Smith-Rowe, Tierney. There are people out there representing the club that I am invested in, and I do want to see do well. And I feel that they also are invested in things. But there's also Granit Xhaka on a brand new contract, and and Willian's still at the club. And
do you think maybe the Xhaka thing was because a lot of clubs, when a player wants to go, they give him a new contract, include a clause in the contract where they can't go for any less amount of money? Or was that too logical for Arsenal to do with Xhaka? Because it seems
smart.
It's a 2-year contract. I mean, his contract ended at the end of next season, and now it's going to end at the end of 25. So, what's the logic in that?
But I don't know, because I think I said it on our last episode. Like, he will never be worth more than he is right now. Like, off the back of the good Euros and the age,
Hang on, what is he worth right now? Because whatever it was, Roma weren't willing to spend it, but they were more than willing to spend it on Tammy Abraham. It's not like he had an army of suitors lining up.
But that's what like we should have just taken. What were Roma offering, and what did we want? I think
someone made a good point. It's not just how much they are offering; it's how much we save on wages as well.
Yeah,
which is more millions.
Yeah, but
and then beyond that, the sort of the message that sends to us, and that to see our club do that fucking flip flop again, where 2 weeks ago he was as good as sold to Roma as far as we were aware, really, and then first game of the season he's the captain, and then he signs a new contract a few days later. Like, it fucks with your head, doesn't it? As a fan, like
the captain bit does.
Yeah, it really does.
That's mental.
Why didn't just make Tierney the captain? I don't know. Just give Tierney the armband, and you know, I mean,
Or
you're
anyone
past the-
else, because no one else on that pitch had sworn at the fans and thrown their shirt and sulked. You know, like he should literally be bottom of the list.
Yeah.
Does make you like if you could ask Arteta a question, I'd like to ask him why would you pick up him, and why would you keep? It's like this Scottish bloke on Tifo who was saying it's the Arsenal donut of shame. Up the right, up the left, cross it, no one gets it, over to the right, back around through midfield, up at the left, and over the donut of shame. Another great title for a podcast. And you'd like to ask him, at what point are you going to stop banging your head against the wall and stop crossing when there's nobody there? It's not like Giroud's there. It's not like Tammy Abraham is there or any of that lot or someone who can head a ball. There's no one there who heads, so don't do it. And he just keeps doing it over. I mean, if you could ask Wenger, if you could ask Arteta a single question that he had to answer honestly, we had truth serum in him, what would you ask him? That's a question I should have given you in all the blurb.
Would have to be, what does he put in his hair?
Puts his hair in the washing machine, I think, is what he does.
I don't know. That's the thing. I'm not really that. It's funny. In the past, I've sort of gone in for tactics type stuff, and I probably would with other teams, but I just don't really care. I just want us to just play nice football and pass the ball around. I'll just probably just ask him why aren't we playing nice football? Like why have you come from Man City and made us play such moribund shit as this? And you know, is it ultimately leading somewhere? Do you think this is kind of, are you laying the foundations for something in the longer term? Is this what you believe to be the maximum of what this group of players can achieve? I mean, the kind of flip side to that is a lot of people have been saying on Twitter recently that like there's a lot of those sort of charts that show the way that we're playing, and it's very similar to the way that Man City played against Tottenham. And obviously, you know, on both occasions, neither team scored, but you obviously feel like for City in the next game, that will probably come good, and they'll probably, you know, do quite well. Whereas in our next game, that isn't going to be the case. Does he maybe think that, you know, the players aren't good enough for the system that he's trying to play in? That wasn't a very straightforward, simple answer, was it? I just ask him why, over and over again.
If he thinks the players aren't good enough, why play that system? You know, play to the players' strengths. The players that you've got set up to play to those strengths. It was like Danny was saying, why are you setting up to cross the ball into the box over and over again if you haven't got the player that you need on the end of it? It's ridiculous.
So
I'm sure he would have some.
You'd lay on top of him and just ask him why over and over and over until you get an answer.
While you were playing Nintendo together.
And then Nicky's watch once he does give you an answer.
I'd bring along the NES. We'd plug it in. We'd have a lovely time. Talk about our favourite goalkeepers. And, you know, he'd probably win me round. I mean, he's very, you know, he's a very magnetic presence. Remember when he went in? Remember that video of him going in when he became the manager and he was pointing at all the computers?
Have you got any
like,
drones?
yeah, this guy knows what he's doing. He's pointing at computers. He's going to be great.
Do you not think that has worn thin somewhat though? And I completely agree with you. Like when he came in, and he's very charismatic and intelligent and can be very charming, but I feel like he seems increasingly more spiky in his interviews and
he doesn't answer.
Yeah, and much more reluctant to actually tell you anything useful, which that doesn't help us, does it? When you just think fuck him. Basically,
I think I think I have sympathy for him because I think there's just so much wrong in the club to sort out, and I think it's just, you know, I don't have him. It's kind of the same with Emery, really. It's like that, you know. I mean, Emery had it even harder because, you know, people were very unkind to him with his English, and he was kind of coming into the league completely cold without any of the experience. Arteta obviously knows the league, he knows the club, all this kind of stuff. I just think, you know, I don't really think ill of him. I just think it's a rookie manager with, you know, a rookie director of football and a rookie whatever Vinay is above him, and a dysfunctional owner.
and a team that wasn't very good to begin with. Like he inherited a team that was in trouble. You know,
a team that's on the slide with poor players in a lot of key positions and a lot of dead wood, which no one wants to buy. And so this is why someone like, you know, Conte, or the boy that we wanted all along. So certainly me and Alex. I don't know if Dan was on board. Benitez. Just get Rafa in. Someone that actually has experience and knows what they're doing and can deal with the, you know, God, Rafa Benitez got a tune out of Newcastle with their owner, you know?
Danny, who would you, if you could wave a magic wand and get rid of Arteta and bring someone in, who do you reckon would fix it?
I don't think as an Inter fan, I don't think you can go far wrong with. There's no point me saying get Pep in or get Klopp or in. I mean, ideally it would have been Klopp as a Dortmund fan. When I support Arsenal, I follow a lot of others. As a Dortmund fan, I love the way he does it, but he'll break every player in your squad physically and mentally to win stuff, and then if they'll get rid of them, and then they never really got replaced properly again. But Conte has done it at Chelsea. He's done it at Juventus, and he did it at Inter Milan. Now that's a bloke. Some people complain that he may not play the world's greatest football, but it don't matter. We're playing shit football, and we're shit. At least he may not play great football, but you're going to win stuff. The moment he walks in there, he's going to have everybody's respect. And I guarantee you that Aubameyang, if Conte was in charge for now, Aubameyang would be back scoring goals, because Aubameyang is a world-class star player, and he's had some baldy with a wig on come in and go, no, I'm in charge, and you do as I say. And Aubameyang's gone, fuck you, I do what I want. I'm Aubameyang. And I reckon that's the problem with Aubameyang. And there's no problem with Lacazette. Lacazette's a decent player, but it's like playing Aubameyang on the wide left. It's the same thing as crossing from all the time when you've got no one in the middle. Arteta has no fucking idea. And we've seen the same from Pep. Pep has now lost the last 3 games as manager of Man City 1-0 because he hasn't got a striker, because they're trying to reinvent tactics the whole time. They probably, after every weekend of football, they probably get on Zoom to each other and they're going, oh, look how good I am. I now play rush goalkeeper left back. Oh, I've reinvented football this way. No, fucking stop it. Imagine Wenger with all the players we've got now. And now we've added Odegaard to that. We have got fantastic players in almost every position, apart from probably right back. And any decent manager should be able to make them play decent football. And with no European football, we've got one job. It's like that. Those memes that you get. You only had one job as a toilet seat's put on upside down. That's Arteta, and I didn't want him to be manager in the first place. He fluked the FA Cup. He's never going to do it again. And until we get rid of him. But like you were saying, Tom, we've got a dysfunctional owner, and I love the word moribund, close to death. Well, I love that.
Conte coming in, I think, would be one of those moments,
and I think he'd take it.
It'd be interesting that it would be, a former Inter manager. It would be a moment like Bergkamp, where you would feel like, right, this is actually a serious appointment that a serious football club makes, not a kind of, half-assed. That's the thing.
Kind of thing, yeah.
Yeah, I just think that's just a serious football manager who knows what he's doing, going to get results, going to get you Europa League football once again, the promised land, please.
Because Liverpool ain't got much longer, have they, Dan? Klopp's doing what he usually does. All those players are fucked, and then they're not spending big. They bought one player from RB Leipzig, and they've already got an injury to. And is it Robertson? Andy Robertson.
He's out for a bit already now, isn't he? Yeah,
he's had an injury. They've not bought. Salah has lost it a bit of pace.
And I mean, Firmino and Mane, they had difficult seasons last season, and then they're a year older
they're
now.
Not getting better.
No, they're not going to get any better, and it's odd how little they bring in new players, isn't it? But like you said, that's Klopp's. That's what he does.
That and caffeine pills.
Works them to death. Yeah, caffeine pills. Yeah.
Lovely caffeine. Right. So before we go, Tom, your final prediction position for the end of the season, if Arteta stays the entire season.
If Arteta stays the entire season,
yeah, because I can't see Kroenke getting rid of him because he doesn't care. Well, it sounded like I was crying then. I wasn't. I forgot to breathe.
I might be overthinking this, but if Arteta stays the whole of the season, then I think that means that we've done well. So fifth.
Or
in,
maybe
you
Kroenke hasn't
mean-
read a newspaper.
Yeah, exactly.
if
Kroenke doesn't give a
Arteta's
shit,
the-
like you said.
If Arteta's there for the last game of the season, then we'll finish fifth and we'll probably won the League Cup. But
great.
that's not actually my prediction of what's going to happen.
No, gone by Christmas, we know.
I mean, like, you know, I said this on the podcast. All I really care about is finishing above Spurs. That's
Unless
what
the
I'm
caveat
reduced to.
of the Europa, not Conference League, they can finish above us all day long instead of having them being in that.
Yeah,
fucking thing.
if it's the choice between finishing above Spurs or qualifying for the Europa Conference League, I'll finish below them. That's fine.
The amount of
Right,
people on
and
Twitter that wanted it the other way around. Oh, finish above Spurs no matter what. No, you
It's
fucking
ridiculous.
idiots.
They'll sit like Spurs are playing tomorrow, aren't they? And the effect it's going to have on their season. Yeah,
Against teams that have had to write their own shirt numbers on the back of their shirts, no doubt that one was because of the rain, but you get what I mean. They probably don't even have a club badge. That's the kind of teams they were playing against.
Awful business.
So, what's your prediction for the end of the season, then, Dan? Position?
I think on our last episode, I predicted fifth, which, having spoken to you two for an hour and a half now, seems wildly optimistic, and I don't know what I was thinking. So
Sunny up plans.
this is if Arteta stays.
Don't change. Stick by your prediction.
I mean,
You
I have
can't
to
now, anyway.
really. I
You
can't.
can't make a prediction.
No.
Yeah, you said fifth.
I've said
That's your
fifth, so
prediction.
I'm sticking with fifth, even though,
Yeah.
I mean, I'd take fifth in a heartbeat.
Oh, dear. Oh,
What
dear.
have we been reduced to?
Yeah.
The fourth was the glory days. They're going. I think if we get the 8th 3 times in a row, 8th is officially ours. I think that's how it works with most trophies. You win it 3 times in a row, and it's yours. So we've got the 4th, we've got the 8th.
We'll get a gold 8.
That's it. Right, Dan. Where can I was going to say Tom, but he's drinking. Dan, where can people find you on the Twitters?
We're on Twitter at TBBPod, and we're also on Instagram at TBBPod, although we post on there a lot less because I'm in charge of the Instagram account.
Oh, Dan, we've got 5,000 genuine followers on ours, and I don't even use it. I spent
5,000
ages
followers,
doing
wow.
that. And I follow all Arsenal fans as well. Sneakily followed them. Then when they followed back, I unfollowed them. So we only followed about 13 people, all podcast. That's it. Don't tell them I did that, though. But
Who would do such a thing? Who would do such a thing?
It's just more of a game. I have no intention of using Instagram. I don't like the fact that I have to use it from my phone. If you can't use it from a PC, I'm not interested. How about your personal Twitter, Dan? Do you want to share that, or would you rather it go anonymous?
Twitter, I'm at Dan_draws, and my Instagram is at DanXdraws, which is probably more interesting for people because that's all my pictures are on there.
Well, dear listener, if you want
good Instagram, follow it.
If you want to find those, I shall put those in the shenanigans when I write up the pod, and I'll put it in there, the YouTube, the SoundCloud, and on our website. I'll have hyperlinked links because that's the only thing I can do with websites is hyperlink. How about you, Tom? What's all your shenanigans that you want to share?
I don't think anyone needs my personal social media. Just
make one up.
Well, I do have one.
I'll go on, tell them.
People that listen to this, they might follow me and see if they can come around and lie on top of me for an evening.
Well, I'll tell everyone I live in Manchester, and so far so good. 9 years, no one's come for me.
On Twitter, I'm at 3catsmith. I don't tweet very often, but sometimes I do. Follow me.
What an
My
endorsement.
God, that is a stunning endorsement of your own social media antics.
I mean, I think Alex and I both do the same thing, which is sort of periodically delete Twitter off of our phones and hope to never ever go on it ever again. It's a fucking cesspit, but you have to use it, don't you?
I did it today. Someone called me a twat, so I sent him a picture of kittens in a bucket, live kittens, not dead, not an animal. So they don't know what to do when you do that. They just call me. I think he might have called me a prick. What a fucking idiot! Probably to all of his 5 followers.
What was that in response to?
I can tell you.
Can you share that image
I was
with me?
just interested in what you'd said.
I might have use for that tomorrow if people start listening to this episode.
I'll find him. I've had a lot of people interact me today because I made a decent point that Erdegaard was a great deal. Oh, here we go. It said, if I go to, I'm going to close this other one because otherwise I'll bring up the wrong one. Then I can go down to share screen. Don't worry about it, people. There's nothing dodgy going on. And then here, and then I can fat shame the twat. So there you go. It was, I don't know his name. He said, you're the only twat. What Taff? What the actual fuck? You know nothing about Madison. Oh, I said Madison was a twat, was a dickhead. He's superior player. So there you go. There is 6 kittens in multicolored cups. And if I click on here, you might be able to see my. Oh, there you go. I put James Madison, 25 in November, bit of a twat. Leicester seems to want him out for an alleged 75 million and 200k a week. Ødegaard, 23 in December, amazing talent, slotted in right away last season, and at 22 was made captain of Norway and only 30 million and was on between 80 and 100 grand a week at Real. I mean, what's wrong with that? 137 other people liked it, and this dickhead with his
That's such
5 followers,
angry.
he's owned me. He's Irish, probably related to me on my mum's side. Hates me. Right, there you go. And then I do stop. And there you go. The wonders of StreamYard. Won't be able to do that for much more longer because we're not fucking paying for it again. So
very much an example of the delights of Twitter there.
It is. Good job I didn't have any dodgy browsers opened, but you can do it for any browser that you want because I use 5 browsers at once because I'm that kind of person. Right. Tell us a little bit about your podcast, Tom, and where they can find it.
So the podcast is called The Bruised Banana, an Arsenal podcast. That's the official title. You can find us on all the places where you get podcasts. Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Acast is another one.
My personal favourite.
We're available there. And we will be releasing episodes periodically this season when we can, covering the club.
So do you know when your next show is, Dan?
Yeah, we're going to record after the City game because we figured it's going to be too miserable doing them after every game, these first 3. So we're going to do one big miserable 3-game lump after the City game, I think is the plan.
0 goals, 0 points.
Yeah,
0 points.
That's going to be the title of the episode.
Oh dear.
Well, we will have some anagrams on that episode, especially for Ramsdale.
And do you take listeners' anagrams?
We take. Well, we might not officially inaugurate them into the. What's it called? Alex's anagram alley, but
I think Alex would feel weird about that. I think he wants to have sole ownership of the anagrams. You can submit them if you want, but
I want to hear listeners' anagrams for sure.
Yeah.
Oh dear. Cause a bit of controversy.
Dissent. It's all right. We'll sort it out after the record. I'll whip him into shape.
Excellent. Right.
Unlike Conte coming into the podcast, there's no mucking around with me.
Oh, that would be good. Conte coming in. It'll annoy people, but it'll work. That's the main thing. I think that's everything covered, gentlemen. So, Tom, thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. Oh, if anyone's wondering, it's Wednesday at 9:56 p.m. The Ødegaard Day, as it shall now fourth from now on be known. Henceforth. There you go. There's the words in the wrong order. Henceforth known as Ødegaard Day. Tom, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thanks for having us on.
Good luck with your only 25 years to go, and then you'll be a free man. Do you have any plans?
I'll
kill again.
I'll probably go out and celebrate our first league title in half a century.
Wow, great days. Looking forward to it. Dan, thank you very much for joining us.
Cheers, Danny. Thanks for having us, mate.
It's I thank you for doing a podcast I genuinely enjoy listening to. With I think sometimes you're a little bit on an edge with each other. You're all like siblings. There's always a little bit of two of you will always pick on one of the other ones. It's usually Alex that gets picked on. Right. This is that's the end of the show, people. This is going to go out. So we haven't recorded Thursday's podcast yet, which is recording tomorrow. That'll be out tomorrow. But this isn't going to go out until May. The game is on Sunday, so we may release this on Saturday. So this is actually, I'm telling you what's going to happen when you've already heard it. So I'm going to shut up and not bother telling you, you freeloading scumbags. Right, this has been a Bergkamp Wonderland. Thank you very much for listening, and up your bum. Right, don't say anything. I'm in the show.